Hello and welcome back, Lady Joyful here, and I'm glad you could join me today for the final video in my Easter card series using Easter Elly digi-stamp from Sasayaki Glitter. I printed the image out on some alcohol marker friendly paper and I used a Sizzix die to die cut it into a little hexagon, and then I'm going to start on the colouring, and I'm slightly off screen at first, but I'm starting by colouring the elephant herself, little Elly. And I'm using my lightest grey markers for this. My lightest shade is almost completely dried up, so I was fighting with it quite a lot to get it to blend out. So I started by colouring the first ear, and I'm working with my shadows as I usually do on the left hand side, so the light source is coming from the right hand up, kind of top right. I usually work putting my darkest colour down first into all the shadow areas, and then I move on to my mid-tone and blend out that darker colour, and then once I'm happy with that I move on to my lightest colour and blend it all out. The pens I'm using here are Yosoo alcohol markers for the greys. I also have Spectrum Noir Illustrator markers which I will swap to later, but I don't have any greys in the Spectrum Noirs at the moment, so that's why I'm using the Yosoo markers. And here you can see me fighting with the lightest grey, which, as I said, is almost completely dried up, which is very helpful when colouring a grey elephant. So I worked at it quite a lot and was really struggling. After a little while I decided to try swapping to the chisel tip, just because even though they share the same chamber, it might be that there is more at the other end, which in this case it did work a bit better luckily, which made it possible for me to finish off the card. So I'm just filling in down the chunk, and here still it was a bit dry, it just was slightly juicier than the bullet tip, so it enabled me to finish off. So I coloured the body of the elephant in much of the same way. I just did that off camera just because it's the same process and it involved a lot of fighting with that lightest grey. Then I'm colouring in the bunny ears, and I did pink inner ears and a pink band and left the ears themselves white. And then I'm going to colour the basket, and I'm using some very light brown tones for the basket. Here I've swapped to the Spectrum Noir markers, which are these hexagonal caps. Again, I started by laying in my shadow area and then moved to the mid-tone and then the lightest colour to blend it all out. I'm using a light kind of almost teal blue for the Easter egg, and I chose my colours based on the pattern paper that I'm going to be using. I picked out the paper first so that I knew what kind of colour tones I needed to use for the card, so that I can try to match the colouring so that it will coordinate nicely. For the bow on the egg I'm using a couple of shades of green, and I will use those same shades of green to colour the bow on the basket off screen. Then I'm going to use some orange tones to colour in all the flowers. I considered doing the different styles of flowers, different colours, so there would have been 3 different coloured flowers, but I decided in the end to just do all 3 of them the same colour. Now bring in some different green tones to colour the grass and the leaves on the flowers. Again, putting in my shadows first, and with the leaves I'm putting the shadows closest to the stem, as if the leaves are kind of folding inwards. Then I will lay in my ground, the grass, to ground the image. And I'm slightly off camera here, but I used the salad green colour again just to add some darker shadow beneath the elephant, and then I'm blending it out with the LG2, which completes the colouring. And here you can see the pattern papers that I picked out, so that's where I got the kind of blues and oranges, and then the pink I represented in the bunny ears. I just thought the flowers and the Easter eggs were appropriate for the image, so I adhered the pattern papers directly to my card base just using double-sided tape, and I popped up the elephant's image with foam tape for a bit of added dimension. I considered adding a sentiment, but I decided it didn't really need one. I can always add one on the inside if I want to. And that completes the final card in my Easter series. I hope you enjoyed it, and there will be a link to the playlist of the Easter cards. If you haven't seen them all, you can find them there. If you're not already subscribed, you can subscribe by clicking the buttons on screen. The like button is down below, and there are a couple of other videos here that you may enjoy. You can find a link to the blog down below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!